أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وقال الله سبحانه وتعالى لن ينال الله لحومها ولا دماؤها ولكن يناله التقوى منكم وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من صام يوم عرفة غفر الله سنتين سنة مادية وسنة مستقبلة أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Very respected brothers and sisters, all praises be to Allah Azza wa Jal, who has given us this capability and this tawfiq to come to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and remember Him. And for verily this is not my capability, but except this is the tawfiq of Allah, that Allah has chosen us to come to His house on these days of Dhul Hijjah, to come to His house and for Salatul Jum'ah and pray our Salah in the masjid in congregation. This is not something, an achievement from my side, but we should look at it as if this is a tawfiq, this is the mercy of Allah and the blessing of Allah that He has allowed us to come. The more we thank Allah, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase the bounties. We have been hearing, probably in different masajid, about the importance of these days of Dhul Hijjah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Fajr, in Surah Fajr, that وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ. And the ulama mentioned that Allah is taking an oath on these 10 nights, and these 10 nights refer to the nights of these 10 days, of these 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah, the first. And these, subhanAllah, we have been hearing about the benefits and the virtues of these days. On these days, subhanAllah, is the day of Arafah, and is the day the Hajj, and subhanAllah, on these days, and also subhanAllah, the Udhiyah, the sacrifice. So many things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put with the sha'air Allah, the sign of Islam in these days. And these days are very, very precious. It comes about Yawm Arafah, that on Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that on the day of Arafah, he stood on the plains of Arafah, and subhanAllah, he gathered the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and then he gave a khutbah to them, mentioning about the blessedness of that day, of that region, and of that land, especially of that month. So subhanAllah, this day of Arafat is not only blessed for the people who have gone for Hajj, and who are doing right now as we speak, subhanAllah, the Hujjaj are already there, and who are subhanAllah doing their Hajj. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept their hajj and bring them back safely and accept them, subhanallah, for the obedience and for the pleasure of Allah. And for the rest who could not make it, Allah give us also the tawfiq, the opportunity to go next year, inshallah. And this day of Arafat is not only blessed for the Hujjaj, but also for the blessed for the entire, subhanallah, for all the Muslims. Because as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, that one who fasts the day of Arafat, comes in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives 2 years of sins. A years of sins before, and the past years of sins, and the future years of sins. Imagine one day of fasting, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives 2 years of sins. So we should all have intention that inshallah this Sunday will be the Yawm Arafah, that we should all be inshallah fasting unless there is a legitimate excuse. And subhanallah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that after the blessed days of Ramadan, the blessed fasting of the Ramadan, the most blessed fast is the fast of Arafat. So the amal and the dua of Arafat, the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He watches on this day is subhanallah our du'as, our returning and repentance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our obedience, our acts of worship. Subhanallah, if we should see if we can increase in order to draw the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, increase the adhkar, the dua. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to recite some du'as. He used to seek, subhanallah, protection from the punishment of qabr. And he also used to ask for the cleanliness of the heart, and various du'as we can learn. And subhanallah, the dhikr also, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd wa huwa ala kulli shayin qadir. The Hujjaj are saying, Labbaik, Allahumma Labbaik. And subhanallah, we should also increase our adhkar and our dua on this day. And along with this, my respected brothers and sisters, the very important amal of sacrifice, which is also on these days, the day of the Eid and 2 more days after. These 3 days when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us to sacrifice an animal. And when Sahaba radiallahu anhum asked, O Rasulullah, what is udhiyah? What is sacrifice? What is qurbani? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, this is sunnat abikum Ibrahim. This is the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. When subhanallah, we should remind ourselves constantly. I will not repeat the entire story, but it is a huge benefit when we remind ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned these stories not to read only once. Yes, I know that story. Yes, I know that incident. But to read them again and again, draw lessons from it. There is huge amounts of lessons to be drawn from the event Ibrahim alayhi salam, how he was told to sacrifice Ismail alayhi salam, and the whole incident. We should remind ourselves, remind our kids, subhanAllah, so it becomes fresh in the memory of us, that whole practice of this udhiyah, the sacrifice. Everything has a basis in Islam. Nothing is just like that. So we should remind ourselves of this. But the main focus I would want to put on this khutbah is not the customary act of, subhanallah, of sacrificing an animal. That we sacrifice an animal, we shed the blood, and then we are done away with it, and we return back to our normal lives. What is the essence of this sacrifice, this udhiyah? What is the essence? What does Allah want from us from this act? Firstly, subhanallah, we should also constantly talk about the fadail, the virtues. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, for every hair on the animal, your sin will be erased, or you will get a good deed. For every hair. And on the day of judgment, the horns, the blood, and the skin will be weighed on your favor on the day of judgment for the sacrifice of the animal that you're doing. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Fatima radiallahu anha that if possible, stand close to the animal, because before the first drop of the blood touches the ground, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives your sins. There is so much fadail, subhanallah, and what animal to choose, when to do it, how to do it. There is so many masail, there is so many things that we need to find out from scholars. This is not the session for that, but an encouragement for all of us. Those of us who are not completely aware, or maybe you're not completely confirmed, then we should ask the scholars and confirm that what is the process, when I should do, what I should do, how I should do, for what I should do, am I eligible, who is eligible, for my kids. SubhanAllah, there will be so many things we cannot cover in this, but there should be an awareness amongst ourselves to find out that, subhanAllah, that anyone who is capable of doing it, of giving it, should do it, the husband and the wife included. And so, as I was mentioning, the purpose, the maqsad of this is not to shed the blood of the animal, but the maqsad is for us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us a lesson, is putting something forward in front of us, that just like you're sacrificing the animal, the essence of it is that you have the insan, a human being, we have to sacrifice our desires. Those desires which come in conflict with the wishes of Allah. Those which come in conflict with the hukum, with the orders of Allah. Those desires, subhanallah, getting upset, getting angry, and doing whatever we want, not having sabr. These are the qualities, subhanallah, in order to have these qualities in us, you have to do sacrifice. If a person does not want to be patient, then there is no sacrifice he needs to do. If a person wants to do whatever he can do when he becomes angry, he or she becomes angry, then there is no sacrifice involved. The sacrifice is when you get angry and you control your anger, despite you being right and the other being wrong, for the sake of Allah. You being right and the other being wrong, you being patient. You being hiding someone's fault. You not taking revenge despite having the capability of taking revenge, for the sake of Allah. And these qualities, so on and so forth, these qualities, in order for a person to get these qualities in our life, subhanallah, and to sacrifice those desires which come in conflict, that is the sacrifice we need to give. That is a sacrifice which we have to learn from this incident. Subhanallah, it is said, تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ. Bring the sifat, some of these sifat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. The sifat of, subhanallah, of forgiveness. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives. Imagine how many sins and how many people He is forgiving. How much He is forgiving day and night. If He were to choose not to forgive, what will be your condition and my condition? If He decided no more forgiveness for this person, or for that person, or for me, or for you, what will be our condition? So imagine the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu's daughter Aisha radiallahu anha, when some Mushtaq, radiallahu anhu, when he slandered his daughter, that she did something which she did not do. And then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was very upset, because he would subhanallah, he would spend on him. He would give him charity. But when he heard the same person I am giving charity to, he is doing this to my own daughter, not even finding out what the truth. It's not even as if it is the truth. It is something baseless. He became so upset that he said, I will stop giving any more charity to him. Immediately the ayah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals, وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Don't you want forgive, O Abu Bakr? Don't you want Allah to forgive you? Imagine what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing. Who should He be addressing in this incident? Mushtaq or Abu Bakr? But imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing in this ayah to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. That have patience, have sabr, do ihsan. Don't you want Allah to forgive you on the day of judgment? Immediately Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he held his head and he said, subhanallah, now I forgive. But not only that, he increased the charity he used to give. He started doing ihsan. In order to do that, that is when the time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent us khalifatul fil ard. Has sent us as representatives in this dunya, as representatives of the greatness of Allah, of showing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, the gentleness of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the mercy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the adl of Islam, the justice of Islam. These are the things that we have been sent as Khalifa, as representative. So we see, subhanallah, how Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu responded. So much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives. So we should bring this sifat in our lives, that how I can be of the person also that I can sacrifice, so I can elevate myself from just being a normal person to an insan. So I can become the Khalifa. So this is a sacrifice that I will give to come closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. So I'll bring this sifat in my life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He hides the faults. How much does He not hide our faults? Our young, our old, our men and women, our learned and not learned, literate and illiterate, position, rich people, poor people, all colors, everyone, Allah is hiding our faults every day, every moment. If we were to know our own faults, if the person who is sitting next to us knows our faults, subhanallah, what will be? They would not even probably look at our face. They will not even probably talk to us. How much sattarul uyub. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hides the faults and He's continuously been hiding. So we should also bring this sifat. Today, how common it is in our society, unfortunately, that when we see something wrong, then we take, subhanAllah, unfortunately, there is a joy, there is pleasure in talking about someone's sin, someone's disobedience to Allah. You know what? He did it like this. Pleasure of what? Allah is Sattarul Uyub. Hide the faults of your brother, of your sister, so Allah will hide your faults on the Day of Judgment. Don't we want Allah to hide our faults on the Day of Judgment? Just think, if Allah were to open my faults in front of the people, what would be my condition? So this sifat, in order when I see something, disobedience of Allah, when I see some sin of some particular person, subhanAllah, for me to hide that requires sacrifice. Requires sacrifice. That is the sacrifice that is being expected from us, not just shedding the blood of an animal and forget the whole story. And then, subhanAllah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, has the quality of Razzaq. He is the one who sustains every fish in the ocean, sustains every insect, sustains every mosquito, every human being, every animal, every bird, everything that we know, we don't know. Allah is the only one sustainer. La raziqa illa Allah. No one is sustaining except Allah. No one is sustaining except Allah. My shop, my business, my supervisor, my company, my country, my this. No, my respected brothers and sisters. Only Allah is our raziq. Allah is the only one who is feeding us. Everyone. SubhanAllah, we should bring this sifat that how can I also be generous enough to feed people? How can I also be generous enough to feed people? SubhanAllah, once Ja'far radiallahu anhu was passing by, and he passing by a garden, and he sees a slave, SubhanAllah, working in that garden. And when the time for lunch comes, he sits under the shade, in the morning time, he's opening up to have his meal, breakfast, whatever. He opens up his food, and he sees, Ja'far radiallahu anhu is seeing this, watching this, a dog passing by. And when the slave sees the dog, because the dog is so hungry, he gives away all his food to the dog. And Ja'far radiallahu anhu comes to him and he says, "You're feeding everything to the dog?" He said, "The dog looks like very hungry, has not probably eaten from days, so I will fast today." So Ja'far radiallahu anhu was so impressed by this. This is the slave? Abdul Mu'min khayrun min mushrik. Even the slaves, believers, are better than mushrik. So what did he do? Ja'far radiallahu anhu was so impressed by him. He said, "Who does this garden belong to?" He said, "This belongs from the family of Osman radiallahu anhu." Immediately went to him. And he said, "Yes, oh Ja'far, what do you need?" He said, "I need to buy this land from you." "You don't need to buy, take it free, this is for you." He said, "No, I want to buy." He said, "Okay, you can buy." He said, "But I need the slave with the land." He said, "No, that slave we cannot give." "Why we cannot give? Why you can't give?" "Because we have raised him since childhood. We cannot part with him." But after a long conversation, after subhanAllah pursuing, he finally got the deal of the land and of the slave. He goes to the slave and says, "I free you, and this land, you don't have to worry, is your gift now." SubhanAllah, and then he immediately said, "May Allah be witness that I give this land back to the inheritors of Osman of the family of Osman radiallahu anhu." This is the people, Razzaq, the sifat. How people are so generous that they give, subhanAllah, they feed others. Today, unfortunately, Allah forgive us, that today, subhanAllah, it comes in the hadith of Jabir radiallahu anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the dish that he most liked is the dish prepared of the head of the animal, of the goat, the curry made of the head pieces. And he also mentions in the hadith that when a guest is offered food, something in his home, and he looks at the food, the guest, he looks at the food, and he feels insulted. Me, and I am being fed this food? Then Jabir radiallahu anhu said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to his meaning that this is enough for his destruction of akhirah. And similarly, it also mentions in the same hadith that when the host feels insulted, how can I feed this food to my guest? It will be an insult for me. For him also, just this act is enough for his destruction of akhirah. Close meaning of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today, why is it difficult for us to take people to our homes to feed them? Because we want to do da'wah, we want to invite people to our home. We have to plan 7 days, 8 days, cup should look like this, plate should look like this should look like that, this should look like this. They will sit here, they will eat this food, this menu. We made it so difficult for ourselves and our women folk that now invitation, common invitation, there is enough food just prepared at home, for the husband and the wife. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, close meaning, what is prepared for two will be enough for three. What is prepared for three will be enough for four. Because of all this takalluf, we don't even, subhanAllah, resist ourselves to even invite. Otherwise, we pick up someone's hand, come eat with us. How long have you been? You have not come to our house. Come to our home. We have made it unnecessarily difficult upon ourselves with these takallufat, which is not based in Islam. And the other, subhanAllah, sifat. And then, subhanAllah, we can go on, my respected brothers and sisters. But what is the objective here? Is also, like I said, subhanAllah, that a person sacrifices his desires to bring the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person does not bring these sifat, does not start to become an insan, become these sifat and start to become the Khalifa of earth, he does not start to go up, and he does not even check his own level, then he starts falling down and down and down and down. Lower than the level, subhanAllah, of a human being. And it is said he starts to fall as a level of animals. And it has come in the Quran that some of you are even worse than animals. And then, subhanAllah, the first category of the animal that has come is that animal who does not care about anyone else, it only cares about itself. Let the other person eat or not eat, whether he has food or no food, whether he's living good, he has problems or no problems. I have no worry and concern. Whether house is deen, nothing. Like birds. They just do their own thing. They don't care about anyone else. And if a person does not even check to that level, then he continues to fall down. He goes to another level where he becomes where he can only benefit when he causes harm to others. Like a lion, in order to feed, it has to cause harm to another animal. A goat, for example, or a deer, for example. So human beings will start to go to another level, go down to another level, where in order to benefit themselves, they will cause harm to the others. And if a person does not check even at that level, and start to rise and remove these and bring this sifat by sacrificing, he does not do, then he falls to another level, where he does not care whether he is benefiting or not benefiting. His maqsad is to harm others. Like a snake or a scorpion. The scorpion does not get full by biting someone. The snake does not get full by biting someone. It will only cause harm to you or kill a person. So a person, subhanAllah, can come down to that level. So my respected brothers and sisters, this is a reminder that these sifat have to be brought in our life. These are the temptations which we have to keep ourselves and sacrifice so that we can bring the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and bring the sifat of Khalifatul Ard, the representative of Allah on this earth. We have to bring these sifat, and for this is the real essence of sacrifice. So let us who sacrifice on that day, on the day of Monday, the Eid, or the 2 days after, whenever we are sacrificing, let us not see subhanAllah as a ritual and then forget about it. My parents used to do, my grandparents used to do, every year I do this. But we think, subhanAllah, what is that thing in my life that I am sacrificing from now on? Oh Allah, for your sake, from now on, I will sacrifice myself against this sin, this disobedience, or this thing when I get angry I do, this thing when I don't have patience, this thing when I don't compromise, this thing. There are lines and lines of stuff we can think of. So this is the essence. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. So we went over the importance of fasting on the Arafat, and also subhanAllah, the importance and the dua for the Hujjaj, and also the essence of the sacrifice. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. استغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى سائر الصحابة والتابعين وعلى عبادك الصالحين. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات والأحياء منهم والأموات. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم ثبتنا على الإسلام ونظر قلوبنا بنور الإيمان. اللهم اجعلنا من الراشدين. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات والأحياء منهم والأموات. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله تعالى أعلى وأولى وأهم وأجل وأتم وأكبر. أقيموا الصلاة.